Good afternoon, or good morning, good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to joining us. Unfortunately, our host seems to be having some issues with his connectivity. Paul, hopefully he'll join us soon enough. But for now, I'm going to simply do my own introduction and start the talk because that's what we're here for. So welcome to this Testomat webinar. Just a quick thanks to Paul and Olga and everybody else behind the scenes who've made this possible. My name is Bas Dijkstra. I'm an independent test automation trainer and consultant from the Netherlands. And what I'm going to do first is share my screen. And there we go. Just a quick message to Olga behind the scenes. Can you let me know in the chat if you can actually see my screen right now? Awesome. So let's go. Let's talk about APIs and about security and about API security testing. The title of this talk, Are You Sure Your APIs Are Secure? And let me start by the why behind this talk. Why do we as testers, development teams, have to concern ourselves with API security testing? These are figures, numbers from 2022. I don't think they've changed much since. But in 2022, 83% of all the traffic that's being transferred on the internet is API driven. And that is a lot of data. And some of that data might be public, but there's also lots of data that is, well, not there for everybody to see. Um, but people want access to that data. People with malicious intent, sometimes people call those hackers, they want access to that data. They want um, to see that data, scrape that data, use that data, sell that data. And APIs are much, much easier to access compared to, for example, databases or servers or file systems or whatever. That has led to lots and lots of high profile breaches over the last couple of years. And governments, like, for example, we in the EU, I am based in the Netherlands, we have GDPR, um, which means that we need to take care that our data is safe. And because we need to take care that our data is safe, we need to concern ourselves with the security of the APIs that expose and transfer that data. So typically I've been in testing and more specifically in automation, but this is more like a general testing talk. API security testing was typically something that is, let's leave that to the experts. That is a very specific corner of the testing world that we have the security testing specialists who will take care of that. And to some extent, that is still true, but there's also a lot that we can do ourselves without that deep security testing knowledge, without using highly specialized tools. And that's what my talk about is today. So I'll talk a little bit about API security, but most of all, I want to show you how you too can perform API security tests with what is a basic, some basic, just common API testing tools. I'm using Postman in this talk, but that could be Bruno, that could be Karate, that could be Rest Assured, that could be basically any common regular API testing tool. And the only other thing you need really is a healthy dose of curiosity, creativity, and common sense. The good news is that's what we have. That's what we bring to the table as testers anyway, or at least that's what I think we should bring to the table as testers anyways. So without further ado, without further talking, let's just get started. So what I've got here is my trusty Postman installation, and I've got a number of examples prepared for you. And depending on the time, I want to allow some time for Q&A. So at some point, I'll just stop talking and hand it over to Olga to see if there are any questions or anything. But let's get started first. So this is a very simple, basic endpoint running on my local machine that creates new users into a system based on a query parameter that contains the username. So if I create a new username called John, it'll create a new user with a uniquely generated ID for me. And if I create another user, Susan, it will create another user with, again, a uniquely generated user ID for me. So far, so good. Functionally, this API seems to be doing what it should be doing. However, if I, and this is a typical test for us as testers, if I leave the username blank, or if I remove it altogether, that would have the same effect. We'll see this. Bad request and just a stack trace with, and we've all seen these stack traces as testers. And from now on, I want you to treat these not just as, oh, that's a problem, something's not working, but also as, oh, there's a problem, this is a security risk. because these stack traces contain a lot of valuable information for people with malicious intent, because it tells me uh, what programming language we're using. Java here in this case could be anything else. It tells me the kinds of libraries that are used to implement the backend here, or the API provider. If I would look really closely at this stack trace, it might even tell me which specific version of a specific library is being used. And that is all very useful information for people who want to exploit that kind of information, because maybe a specific version of a specific library has a known security weakness, a known security vulnerability, which can then maybe be exploited by those hackers. So anytime from now on, please, if your API or your system in general shows a stack trace to an end user or whatever, treat this please not just as a functional issue anymore, but also as a security risk, because this is lots of useful information about the implementation of your system that can then be abused. So exposing sensitive, that's what I call exposing sensitive implementation details. Please make sure that the people who use your application, look at your application, are interested in your application, only see what they're supposed to see, and don't expose implementation details that can then be abused potentially. All right. Next example, pretty similar to the previous one. Let's create a student here in some kind of student administration system, but this time through a JSON request body instead of using query parameters. So I create a new student, John Smith, who's in the computer science program. Awesome. All good. Works like a charm. One of the first things I'm interested in when I'm testing an API and when I'm interested in the security of this API is, how does this API handle potential injection of malicious content? So this is a quick example of a snippet of JavaScript. This is a very benign script, JavaScript, so it's a little bit annoying maybe because it shows a pop-up, an alert, but it doesn't do anything really malicious. So I want to know, are these values sanitized? Is my API properly sanitizing the input? In this case, we'll see it doesn't. Sure, this is probably not an existing major, but that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem here is this is now a value that's stored in a database somewhere. And that could also be a value that's pulled up somewhere in a browser. And browsers, they love JavaScript, they start executing the JavaScript. And that could potentially send all kinds of interesting information that is stored in a browser to someone as a credit card data, cookies, access keys, whatever, to people who can then abuse that information. So one of the first things to check, I think, with an API is how well does it handle potentially malicious input. This is just a and that vulnerability is called called injection. This is JavaScript injection, sometimes also referred to as cross-site scripting. But this is just one example. Here we have the big what we call the big list of naughty strings, which is a super useful resource for any tester because it contains all kinds of interesting strings and values that you can use in testing your application. And one section specifically talks about, it gives you IDs for JavaScript snippets that you could use to see how does my API handle this kind of input. Also, there are SQL injection snippets. So let me very quickly pull up the relevant XKCD here with that student who entered this as their name, which caused the entire students table to be wiped from a system. And so there's a couple of examples here as well. Super, super useful resource. If you Google big list of naughty strings, you'll find it right away. And so that's all about sanitizing your data. How does my API handle injection? Does it allow? So it's not just important to see, well, does my API accept valid values and benign values, but also does it not allow? Does it sanitize? Does it reject potentially harmful values? And because those things can be harmful either to other users of your system or to your system itself. So again, big list of naughty strings is a very valuable resource here. Let me do a quick triple check here to see if everything's going okay. That looks all good. Just want to make sure. And I'm happy to read that Paul seems to have arrived now. So there's loads of libraries and mechanisms that help you with injection. So please, by all means, use them. But if you thought, well, oh no, nobody really falls victim to these kinds of issues. Okay, this is a couple of years ago, but somewhere around 2015, 2016, eBay had a major exposure, a major data leak, access to their system through cross-site scripting, through a little piece of JavaScript injection. Because they had a parameter somewhere in an API call that retrieved the website that enabled attackers to gain full access to eBay seller accounts, which is not a very good look for eBay, and also not something that they intended. It was not intended or scheduled upon functionality. So this is just an example of why we should test for this. And it's not super hard to test this. It is pretty straightforward. So everywhere that your API receives data, so it could be through path parameters, query parameters, form parameters, or through headers or JSON cookies or JSON request bodies or XML request bodies or whatever kind of data it accepts, see how potentially malicious data is handled. So injection is, I think, number 3 on the general OWASP security top 10. So OWASP is the Open Web Application Security Project, which is a team of people, practitioners, researchers that concern themselves with security on the internet. And since 2019, they're also maintaining a top 10 list of API-specific security vulnerabilities. And I wanted to, in the remainder of this talk, I wanted to show you some of those vulnerabilities, what they look like, how to look for them, and how to talk about them. So let's start with probably the biggest problem in APIs. APIs exposing data that people should not have access to. So I'll show you another example here. I'm retrieving data. Shut up, Postman. I'm retrieving data related to my account. So I'm Susie. I have an account with this bank. My account number is 543. So when I retrieve that data, I can see, oh, this is my account. It's a checking account, and my current balance $1,500, Smurfs, whatever. So that's all good. So Susie is maybe a little bit curious as a, let's see what happens if 543 is an existing account, there's a good chance that 542 is also an existing account. But it's not found. So this could either mean there's genuinely no account with this account number, or it does exist. Susie's just not supposed to know that it exists. So 404 is a very reasonable response status code here. But if a hacker, that hacker could be Susie, could be someone else, say, well, ooh, this looks, so I probably, if 543 is an account number, let's just see what happens if I iterate over a list of potentially valid account numbers. So let me quickly select a JSON file or a CSV file that I've prepared for this with a list of potentially valid account numbers. So every from 500 through 599. Use locally. I'm going to run that. What I've also added here is a quick check that checks that the status code is 404. Now you should know that Susie only has a single account with this bank. So what I expect is 99 passes and 1 failure. And that failure is for account number 543 because that returns a 200 and not a 404. So if we run that test, so again, this is a very straightforward test to run. We see that, there's not 1 failure, but there's 2. And this one we expected because this is Susie's account number. But it turns out that also when we retrieved the account data for the account with number 572, we also got a 200. So let's see what happens there. If we say 572, and again, keep in mind, we are still authenticating as Susie, but now we can see data that's associated with, or the account details for an account that's associated with Andrew. And Susie has no idea who Andrew is, but she now sees, Andrew Simpson has a savings account with a pretty high balance here. So this is an example of how you could easily test for, and how again, people with malicious intent try and find data that they're not supposed to see, not supposed to have access to, based on who they are. And that is a vulnerability that in OWASP terminology is called Broken Object Level Authorization, or BOLA. And in fact, on the most recent API security top 10 vulnerability list, it is number 1. So this is the most common API security vulnerability as of 2023. And the ability, the fact that people can see data through an API that they're not supposed to see based on who they are. So some things to look out for here is if your API uses predictable resource IDs. So in this example, that account number is super, super predictable. So we can easily create a list of potentially valid resource IDs, account IDs here, and just iterate over it. Or if there's an endpoint that gives you a list of all valid resource IDs, that's also something that can then be used as input for a test like this. And so these are all potential weaknesses in the security of your API related to broken object level authorization. Another problem that we saw with this specific test is that this API endpoint seemed to just accept me doing 100 requests of these time. There was no rate limiting. And so I could just do a potentially infinite amount of requests in a short amount of time. And that's another way to make it easier for hackers, people with malicious intent, to try and do the kinds of data searches or scraping or whatever you want to call it on an API. So rate limiting, that is restricting the number of requests a certain machine or a certain person can do to a specific API, to a specific endpoint within a specific amount of time. That is called rate limiting. And in this example, we saw an insufficient, or in this case, a total lack of rate limiting. And that in itself, that insufficient or total lack of rate limiting is another vulnerability on that OWASP API security top 10. It's called unrestricted resource consumption, and it's number 4 on the list. So this too is a vulnerability in and of itself, because it just enables hackers to try out lots of different combinations and values of resource IDs or authentication details or whatever. So you probably want to restrict that if you are concerned with the security of your APIs. This is just an example of Ebola vulnerability exposure in practice. So the US Postal Service back in 2018 had a weakness that allowed anyone with an account to see user data for lots and lots, millions of other users. And that's all data that they shouldn't have access to based on who they are. And so you should typically only be able to see your own data, but not the data of 60 million other users. So that's an example of broken object level authorization. Next one, and the next thing I would be interested in if I see something like this. If we can see that data, let's see if we can also modify it. So I've got another example here. So I gotta find, and I should be able to see this data, because this is a fine. That's fine. That's issued to me. I need to pay 180 euros for exceeding the speed limit. Okay, it happens. I don't like paying fines, so let's see if we can get this out of the system without actually having to pay it. Go away. So one thing that I could probably try is, well, what happens if I try and delete it? That is not allowed. Let's see what happens if I try and override it. Also not allowed. Let's see what happens if I put an amount of 0 in this. So let's see if I can override a single property of this fine. Also not allowed. Final attempt. Let's see what happens if I patch it. Oh, that is interesting. So now it doesn't return a method not allowed. It tells me, well, something happened. I accepted this input. And now when I try, let's see what happens if I try and retrieve it again. Let's see what the new state of this fine now is. And it's completely gone. This is an example of the ability to perform actions on data other than just seeing it, to modify data in those cases where you shouldn't be allowed to modify it, again, based on who you are, based on your authentication and authorization. And that is another very common API security vulnerability. And this is called broken function level authorization. That's the number 5 on the list. So I'm not going through them in chronological order or order of importance, order of occurrence or whatever, but these are this is how I would approach a basic, starting out with just looking at the security of an API, really. Another example of broken function level authorization would be, is there any admin endpoints that give me access to admin operations that I can access as a regular user? That's also more common than you would think. So there is some relation, or at least some correlation, between the two vulnerabilities that we saw just now. So broken object level authorization, and the fact that we can see data that we're not supposed to see, and broken function level authorization, which is the ability to modify data that we shouldn't be able to modify. Because both of them have their root cause in broken role-based access control implementations. As somebody forgot to implement role-based access or implemented it incorrectly. Which means it's probably a good idea if you find out that your API exposes data that it's not supposed to expose to you based on who you are. It's also a good idea to say, what else can I do with that data? So it might be a good idea to check for broken function level authorization too. This is an example of broken function level authorization. People, this was a Bitcoin researcher who tried to sell Bitcoin using Ethereum coin. I don't know too much about crypto, but using a different kind of cryptocurrency that they didn't own. So, and it wasn't just a UI bug, it was actually on the order book. So this was a very big security issue with Coinbase, and they paid a pretty decent bug bounty here, $250,000. I don't know exactly which year this was. They've probably fixed it since. Hopefully they did. But this is an example of having access and doing data modifications that you're not supposed to be doing. And that's a prime example of broken function level authorization. All right, another example. Let's order a game. Let us order a game. So I've got a game shop here, and I've got an order endpoint where I can place my orders. And let's see if I can order a copy of FIFA 24. Looks like I can. It's got a unique order ID. It's accepted. All good. And let's see if I can order 100 copies. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with 100 copies of the same game, but maybe I'm a reseller or whatever. And that's also accepted. That is fine. I think that game shop is more than happy to sell me 100 copies of FIFA 24, and they don't really care what I'm going to do with it. But let's say they've also got hold of a very limited edition item. Let's say they've managed to get hold of a few copies of Gamma Attack, which is officially, or at least according to Wikipedia, the world's most rare video game. So if I want not the 1001, so because they want to keep as many of their customers happy as possible, they have a strict no more than one copy per customer policy. So if I try and order a single copy, that is absolutely fine. But if I try to order multiple copies, it's going to give me an error. So I am not going to do that because it's one item of one copy of Gamma Attack per customer only. The problem here is there's a scenario that they forgot to think about, because I cannot order multiple copies of Gamma Attack in a single order. But what I can do is just place a lot of different orders, each for a single copy of Gamma Attack. Is an example. The failure or the failure to recognize and take countermeasures against the different ways in which people can get access to, use, abuse these kinds of business processes and avoid and circumvent these business rules that are implemented in a system is called unrestricted access to sensitive business flows, or UASBF, because who doesn't like an acronym? That is number 6 on the OWASP security top 10 list. So this isn't necessarily related to access to the data that's being exposed, but this is more related to, again, access to or the ability to manipulate, circumvent, work around the business rules that are exposed through the API. So how would we prevent these kinds of vulnerabilities? First of all, by having conversations before you actually build something. That is true for software in general, but I think at the security or how could people abuse this this feature or this thing that we're building here? And that's true for APIs as much as it is true for every piece of software. Is identify, try and come up with all the ways in which people can abuse your software. In this case, well, what would happen if we don't order 10 copies of Gamma Attack in a single order, but place multiple copies of Gamma Attack in subsequent orders? And so identify the sensitive business flows and then take the necessary technical or organizational prevention measures. So what could those prevention measures look like? Here's a couple of examples. Two that I want to very briefly highlight is human detection, use a CAPTCHA or a typing pattern or some other kind of biometric solution to see, well, are we dealing with humans here or are we dealing with a bot here? And another way to do that is, well, if there's only a couple of milliseconds between a user putting an item in the shopping cart and the user proceeding to the checkout, you're probably dealing with a bot here as well. And this is something that you very typically see if concert tickets go on sale online. And so you want to typically those ticket selling agencies like Ticketmaster and whatever, and they typically have lots of security measures built in to prevent bots from scalping all the tickets, from just buying up and then scalping and then reselling all the tickets for a much higher price, because they don't want that. And these are the kinds of countermeasures that they take. And so human and non-human patterns, blocking certain IP addresses or ranges, device fingerprinting, those kinds of things. So it's good to know that we've seen some a few different kinds of vulnerabilities. We've seen some security countermeasures too, but none of these countermeasures, in and of them by themselves, guarantee a fully secure API. The only way to make your AI fully secure is to disconnect it from the internet, and that's really not the point of an API. But there's lots of things that you can do, but none of these individual security countermeasures. So we've seen the device fingerprint, detection of non-human patterns, rate limiting, authorization, a role-based access control, an authorization scheme. None of these things is inherently foolproof and completely safe. But if you put a couple of these countermeasures, these security countermeasures in place, that might lead to the risk of someone being able to go through or circumvent or avoid all of them small enough to make it acceptable for you. And that's called the Swiss cheese model. Again, and none of these countermeasures individually is enough to make your API secure, but each of those countermeasures will hopefully lower the risk, and at some point that risk will be at an acceptable level. And what is an acceptable level is, of course, heavily dependent on the context, on your data, on the amount of data, the value of that data, on your system, on, well, risk, basically. Let me quickly see in the chat. Olga, how much time do I have left? Olga or Paul, can you tell me? I have a couple of minutes left, or when do you want to move to the Q&A? I cannot hear you, Paul. If you could just...
How about now? Are we good?
Oh, much better.
All right, there we go.
Oh.
Too many microphones. Oh, it's been a horrible morning. We're only at 40 minutes in. We got 20 minutes until the break, so you got plenty of time, Bas.
Okay, awesome. So let's do one or two more examples, and then a wrap up, and then some Q&A, and then awesome.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much.
By
the way, it's good to see you.
Good to see you again too.
Awesome. You can still see my screen, right, Paul? All right. So the next one is we all know these kinds of things. Password security. These password security measures. So these apply not just to front ends, to graphical user interfaces. We should test these kinds of things at the API level too. So for example, maybe, so I've got a password change endpoint here. So this is my old password. And maybe, oh, this is not a very good new password. So EFGHIJ 456 exclamation mark. That sounds like a good new password. That's fine. That's all good. But this obviously does not meet the standards. It doesn't meet the minimum security requirements. So this looks pretty good until you try this and you find out that the actual requirement of having both both lowercase and uppercase letters is not a problem. So this is a, I don't know if this is a major or a minor security, but at this, my password is less secure than it's supposed to be now. Even though my graphical user interface, this is, you probably want to verify these kinds of things at the API level too, because this could introduce potentially less secure, insecure kinds of passwords. This is not the biggest problem here, though, because I see a V2 here, and that triggers me. Maybe V1 is also still alive. And I don't know about V1, but let's see what V1. And V1 tends to just accept everything as a password. If I want to leave my password empty, it'll just accept that. So this is two vulnerabilities in one. So one of them, broken authentication. Again, this is related to, so we said our password needed both uppercase and lowercase characters. Turns out it doesn't. And this is just one of the many different shapes and forms that the broken authentication vulnerability takes. So it is broken authentication could also mean, oh, my token never expires, for example. So anything that is, well, literally broken around authentication is an occurrence of the broken authentication vulnerability. So in this case, this example, that's a relatively minor issue. The biggest problem here is this one, improper inventory management. It happens less often, and it's still in the top 10, but it's only at number 9. But the bigger the company is, typically the worse they are, the worse they score on keeping track, keeping inventory of everything that they've deployed into production. And in this case, they successfully deployed a more secure version 2 of this specific endpoint, but they forgot to deinstall or to remove version 1 of that same endpoint, and that is still available with all kinds of interesting security holes. And it could be a V1, it could be a beta version, it could be, I don't know, whatever. But lots of companies are pretty weak at keeping stock of what is and what is not deployed into production. And they have much more available and deployed into production than they actually think they do. And that is all falls under the improper inventory management vulnerability. So this is probably and that's probably a good thing to ask next time you talk about APIs and deployments. How do we know? Are we really sure that when we deploy a new version or a new version of an endpoint, that the previous one is no longer available? That we really solve the problem by releasing the new version and removing the old one. And so, especially when you see prod or V2 or so in an endpoint in an API, it is, or live or whatever, it is probably a good idea. That probably means there's other versions too. And maybe those are in production as well. And there's a reason they were version 1 or beta or whatever, because probably, maybe there's a security vulnerability there that people can then exploit. So that is improper inventory management, or rather, hopefully proper inventory management, but the failing to do so, improper inventory management. So that is a lot of different security issues that we talked about. There's a couple that we missed. So these are the ones that we covered. So broken object level authorization, the fact that we can see data that we should not be able to see. Broken authentication, accepting, in our case, accepting weaker passwords. Unrestricted resource consumption, the lack of rate limiting. Broken function level authorization, and the fact that we can modify data that we shouldn't be allowed to modify. Unrestricted access to sensitive business flows, where we could just place multiple orders of a game that was one game or one copy per customer only. And improper inventory management, the fact that people forgot to take older, more vulnerable, less secure versions of APIs or systems down when they deployed a new version. There's a couple that we missed. It's called a top 10 and not a top 6. So number 3 is broken object property level authorization, which is very, very similar to the number 1. It's just that a broken object level authorization talks about resources as a whole, so accounts. As in our example, broken object property level authorization is, well, can I see properties of a resource? So individual fields or combinations of fields that I shouldn't be allowed to see. When I authenticate as a regular user, I shouldn't be able to see data associated with the resource that is supposed to be viewed by admins only, for example. That is broken object property level authorization. Again, very similar to number 1, just at a slightly lower level of granularity. Number 7 is server-side request forgery. That is the ability to get access to or modify or wreak havoc on property or on provider on servers through URL properties in, for example, in a request. If I've got a request body where I'm asked to upload a picture through URL, and just by providing the URL, I could put all kinds of funny URLs in there. I could also put um, local host reference in there to see how the server responds to that, because that might give me all kinds of interesting implementation details about that server. That is called server-side request forgery. And number 8 is a bit of an umbrella vulnerability. So all kinds of things that are misconfigured around security. And the last one is unsafe consumption of APIs. So number 1 through 9 are all vulnerabilities on the provider side, on the server side. Number 10 is it's a vulnerability on the consumer side, on the system that consumes an API. Do they actually verify the data that is returned by the API? Because that data, those values could be potentially harmful too. And maybe an API returns a malicious piece of JavaScript or a SQL statement or a partial SQL statement. If you don't, as a consumer, you don't verify that and you just process it on your way, you could be just as vulnerable as the provider. And those kinds of vulnerabilities are what OWASP calls unsafe consumption of APIs. I'm going to skip that one. So wrapping up, where to from here? I hope that this talk and these examples that I gave you have given you some ideas on how to get started with API security testing yourself. And hopefully they showed you, again, what I said at the beginning of this talk, that you don't necessarily need super specific API security testing tools, that you don't need lots and lots of deep technical knowledge about APIs and the way they're built. There's a lot you can do with, again, common API testing tools, Postman, Bruno, Karate, Rest Assured, whatever. And just a bit of a healthy dose of curiosity, creativity, and common sense. And I find that OWASP API Security Top 10 is a great guideline, heuristic, what you want to call it, to help you come up with ideas. As a resource, a final resource that I quickly wanted to share with you is API Sec University. API Sec University is a learning platform related to API security. Probably not a surprise here. So it contains a wide range of free courses all around API. So these are video courses, self-paced video courses. The quality of, I've not even checked them all out, but I've completed a couple of them. More notably, I've completed these two, which are very much foundation level courses. I still need to find the time to do a couple more. But what I can tell you is that these are very, very high quality. They are well put together. They're good videos, good examples. And for everybody who wants to learn a little bit more about API security in general and API security testing, this is a highly recommended resource. And that's it from my end. Before we go to the Q&A, I just wanted to very quickly say thank you so much for Paul, to Olga for having me, and for everybody who joined us or is watching this later, maybe, for taking the time out of your day to listen to me talk and demonstrate API security testing. All right, over to you, Paul.
Hey, Bas. Well, I appreciate that. I got to give a shout out to Olga because I was having some computer issues. She obviously took over. I did not catch the first few minutes of hear what was going on, but she is a fantastic producer on our side, taking care of when things just go slightly sideways. So shout out to Olga. Thank you very much on that. Um, I'm going to go. Let's take a look at. We only have a couple of questions, and I've got one I'm going to throw in there as well. And we'll see. We are waiting for Alex to join us on here, so we may go a little bit beyond the break.
That is absolutely, it's fine. But I've got a couple more minutes, so that's
Cool.
absolutely fine.
Thank you very much. Anupam is asking, how can one prevent vulnerabilities while building an API in the first place?
It is a horrible word.
It is. I haven't had my coffee this morning, so I'll blame it. I'll put that on that.
Yeah,
vulnerabilities. My God.
Vulnerabilities. So
vulnerabilities.
Leaks, holes.
Holes. Yes. It was asked you to do standard.
That is if we had the answer to that question, Anupam, that would be the $1 million answer. The only thing is that it all starts with awareness. It starts A, with awareness, and B, with people who ask the right questions. And in that aspect, security is not really all that different from other properties of software. It is just what helps, I think, a lot, which is what we should do as more of what we should do more often in general as testers, is before we even start to build or even design something is okay, let's see how we can make this work, but then also talk about all the hundreds of thousands of ways in which it might potentially break down. So so prevent is a big word. Reduce the risk is definitely by having conversations about, well, how could this go wrong? What could people do to try? And then, of course, the follow-up question is, how are we going to test for that? How can we test? What tests are we going to perform? What tests can we do to see if we actually got a reasonably secure API? And again, it is the only API that's 100% secure is an API that's not connected to the internet. Yeah. And even then, there are ways, probably. But yeah, a lot of it starts with awareness and having those conversations about what can go wrong.
One of the things I was going to mention, had I been here on time, was that I have been working heavily in AI the last, 6 months. And one of the things I've found is that you go and ask an AI. You can also take some courses on how to ask AI prompts well. And there's actually one I'm looking at, probably nobody's heard of, so I always like to shout out about new stuff that I come across. There's a website out there called abacus.ai, and it seems to be fairly good at answering questions and stuff. I actually have a litmus test that I do, is that I go and ask the AI about myself, because I know what exactly would be 100% correct information about myself, because I was there, I did it. And Abacus came back with 100% correct on not only a basic overall of Paul Grossman in test automation, came up with 100% in a detailed, where it took about 2 minutes searching the internet. So it was kind of interesting. I just heard about it because of my new job, and I was like, okay, this is impressive, because every other AI I've looked at, Gemini, I've looked at ChatGPT. It's their accuracy is okay, 80-90%. You were going to say something, Bas. Go ahead.
No, it's just that I was just going to confirm what you said. So they are reasonably accurate, and they are great at giving you suggestions on. This is a kind of an existential question that's coming in. So that's a good one, Louisa.
Yeah.
So Louisa, about this AI. So it's great for it. Let it help you generate ideas. Let it help you come up with different ways to talk about and test security of APIs. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So Alex is here, so I want to give one more shout out for you. If you want to know more about Bas, his website is ontestautomation.com. According to the AI, you haven't written a book yet, so let's see if that's accurate. Is that true? There's no books by you, Bas, yet?
No proper ones. I've written 2 short ebooks in the past, but the most recent one is 2020. So not really something worth mentioning. No,
Okay.
I it's maybe one of those things that I'll start doing when I grow up. I don't know. No, it is. It's one of those that keeps on buzzing in the back. Oh, you should do that one day, but I know from experience, from talking to other people who've actually done it, and from being a technical reviewer in some of those books, that it takes a ridiculous amount of time.
It does. It does. I on mine, they said you got 6 months, and it took a year. And I kept, Douglas Adams is famous for saying, I like deadlines. I like the sound they make as they go whizzing past my head.
Yes. No, it is maybe at some point in the future, but there's no concrete plans, nothing in the works. So
Okay.
no.
Well, I do know that you've got training sessions and stuff. So I presume you can find out about that on your.
Oh yeah,
on
it is
custom.
on my side, or just
Okay.
send a message, email. LinkedIn works. I spent way too much time there, so that's a great way to stay in touch.
All right, fantastic. Any other final closing messages before we move on?
No, just again, good to see you. Thank you so much to you, to all the rest of the Testament team, and let's hand it over to Alex.
All right, thanks, Buzz. Take care.
Yes, bye
Cheers.
bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. Coming up next in just a minute or two, we've got Alex Zapp. He goes by Alex Zapp. It's actually Alex Chernyak. There's Alex. How you doing, Alex?
How you doing, guys? Very good. Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Well, great to see you.
Always good to see you, Alex. It's we've been hanging out and chatting with each other. I don't know, about 10 years, I think, at different conferences. We bump into each other. I'm really excited about your presentation that's coming up over here, talking about the rise of human AI hybrids and how you can empower subject matter experts in the age of automation. Since that's got AI in it, I am just all over that. And I also let everybody know that Alex actually has a product out there called ZAPTEST, and I just want to give a shout out for that. It is pretty cool. We've done the Candy Mapper challenge with that. I'm going to have to go back and take a look if I publish that video. If not, I will do it this afternoon. My apologies. A lot of things have been. I got a brand new job, Alex, and all sorts of crazy stuff going on. And you and I have to talk a little bit after this meeting.
Sure.
Let's see if there's anything else. I'm going to give a shout out again to Testomat for doing these sessions. We do them every 2 months. Me and my co-author, Larry Goddard, do these things. We host them all the time. So we get 2 of the biggest and brightest speakers in the industry. Alex is definitely one of those, and he is fantastic. And I love your little avatar, your little AI avatar. I was showing that to somebody just this week, chit-chatting with it. So I'm going to say, with that said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Alex, and take it away.
Thank you, Paul. Guys, thanks for having me. Great pleasure. Paul, a big fan of your talent, you being an automation and test evangelist. So we'll pack of full professionals that's driving the same, tuning the same message, right?
Yes,
very
absolutely.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys. So I'm gonna be having the presentation deck. It's half animated, and my part will be between presentation deck, my narration. I'm gonna narrate more. I'm gonna be speaking more, and a few video coverages. Not to annoy you with the videography, but it's done by my digital avatar, the one that Paul had mentioned, ASA, Alex Zapp Avatar. and my digital avatar going to do better job than me. It doesn't have a thick accent, and it's much smoother and professionally done. So you'll have a better idea of what I'm trying to convey today. But I believe that will be interesting. We're going to talk about the previous stuff. We're going to talk about future. And I want to encourage you to take questions while you're listening to the presentation. And I would love to answer all your questions. Just don't hesitate, grill me with the questions. Let's really get it to the need and grit. All right. So let me share my screen. Okay, it's asking me to allow this system. All right. Give me just a second. Allow. I use in Chrome. Oh, that's for me. I'm very sorry, Paul. Apple.
Yeah. So basically, Alex is going to jump off real quick and then come back. And the share screen. It's been an interesting day. Everybody's getting affected by this. One of the cool things I've been doing recently is working in AI driven automation, basically using Copilot inside of VS Code in agentic mode. It's not just suggesting things that I could do. It is actually going through and making modifications to tests and even looking at it from a complete view where I can say, hey, I have this function called click link. Is it copied anywhere inside of any of my other page object models? And it will, but it does really cool stuff. So Alex is back here. And I think you did you get your share screen taken care of?
I believe so. I'm using a Mac here, and the Mac has extra security that made me to quit my Chrome browser, and I apologize for that.
Not a problem.
Right. So let me know if you can see my tab with Canva.
Yes, you're good.
All right. So, very good. So this is my deck. We talked today about the AI and human hybrid modeling, right? So just wanted to start with a few quick facts about myself. As Paul introduced me, I'm a CEO and founder of ZAPTEST. We started as a SWAT team 20 years ago of Mercury Interactive, delivering latest and greatest, working with R&D and being involved in some of the project developments that Mercury had. I have a talk show, ZAP Talk, that me and Joe Calantonio, we talking to the thought leaders. Paul was one of our guests as well. I'm a creator of 6 months live proof of concept model. So with ZAPTEST, everybody has half a year ability to make a weighted decision without paying us and quit if they don't like it. And I'm a visionary pretty much about us collaborating with machines to be more productive. They called me American Siberian Tiger. I grew up in Siberia in Russia, and I started in the US. That was my childhood dream. I was, in fact, American kid that left behind to grow up in Russia, and I made it back home when I was in my 20s. So ZAPTEST AI. I'm gonna, as I said, I'm gonna play for you a real quick video that's gonna illustrate who we are. I believe AIs are gonna do a better job than me, and after that, I'm gonna take over and we'll talk about the rest. So let me share my screen again, and I'm gonna share my AI presentation. I believe you can see my browser, right? Cannot hear confirmation, but I assume yes.
Hello everyone, my name is Alex Zapp, founder and CEO of ZAPTEST. Today I'm excited to introduce you to our artificial intelligence-powered enterprise automation solution. For over 20 years, ZAPTEST has been at the forefront of software automation. We began with software testing but have evolved into a full-stack cross-platform automation solution, unifying DevOps and BizOps processes for enterprises worldwide and merging test automation and RPA into one integrated automation process. Today, I'll show you how our ZAPTEST AI capabilities are transforming automation to a whole new level. Let's start with Plan Studio, our flagship AI-driven technology. Plan Studio leverages advanced AI models to evaluate, optimize, and automate test cases and use cases with unparalleled efficiency as seamless automation scenario modules. The process begins by analyzing your existing test cases. AI evaluates each case for automation worthiness, compliance with supported technologies, and reusability of steps. It identifies functional areas, test parameters, and reusable modules, giving you a clear roadmap for automation. Users can generate detailed Excel reports with automation insights, reusable modules, and proposed parameters, making it easy to align with project goals. One of the most powerful features of Plan Studio is its ability to automatically transform test cases into ready-to-execute scripts. With a single click, ZAPTEST compiles steps, UI scans, and reusable parameters into scripts that adhere to best practices like modular design, parameterization, and event-driven validation. These ZAPTEST scripts are ready for further enhancements in our OneScript Studio, where users can easily add UI objects and parameterize data to make them execution ready. Our AI Copilot is a game changer. Powered by generative AI, it helps users develop scripts and resolve automation challenges using simple natural language prompts. Whether you're a seasoned developer or new to automation, Copilot makes the process effortless. ZAPTEST is built for versatility. Using advanced visual object recognition, our platform supports cross-platform automation across operating systems, devices, and browsers. Automate once and execute anywhere with minimal maintenance. This means faster deployment, reduced maintenance, and unmatched efficiency, key factors for enterprise automation success. One of our unique advantages is shift-left automation. ZAPTEST allows you to start automating from mock-ups or even hand-drawn designs, long before the application is live. This accelerates your development process, ensuring 100% automation readiness throughout the software development lifecycle. ZAPTEST doesn't just stop at testing. Our enterprise-grade robotic process automation repurposes testing scripts for business operations. From login workflows to back-office tasks, ZAPTEST automation works seamlessly across departments. ZAPTEST is more than just a tool, it's a complete ecosystem. One of the standout technologies in the ZAPTEST ecosystem is Rec Studio. This feature bridges the gap between manual testers and automation engineers by allowing users to record application interactions, complete with audio narration. This creates a video scenario that not only documents the workflow, but also generates automation objects for scripting, eliminating the need for a live application during initial automation phases. With Rec Studio, knowledge transfer becomes seamless, and teams can collaborate more effectively, even across geographies. MRun Studio is all about speed and efficiency. With MRun, a single script can be executed across all test environments simultaneously. Whether you're testing on web, mobile, or desktop platforms, MRun ensures fast parallel execution. This feature drastically reduces execution time, enabling teams to meet even the tightest deadlines with confidence. Load Studio adds performance testing capabilities to ZAPTEST using standard API scripts. Load Studio enables you to simulate real-world user activity on your application under test, generating load across multiple environments using remote generators. Once the load test is complete, Load Studio provides comprehensive root cause analysis to pinpoint bottlenecks and ensure optimal application performance under stress. Farm is ZAPTEST's private cloud technology designed for enterprise-grade scalability and security. With Farm, you can create a remote-controlled test environment using your organization's hardware, supporting both mobile and conventional workstations. Farm empowers enterprises to centralize their automation infrastructure, ensuring secure, high-performance automation across teams and locations. ZAPTEST support for modularity lets you include calls to existing scripts as reusable modules, share object repositories between scripts, and combine UI, WebDriver, and API steps into a single script. This flexibility means you can automate any task, regardless of complexity or environment, desktop, web, or mobile. ZAPTEST isn't just a testing solution, it's an enterprise automation solution. From DevOps to BizOps, our automation capabilities streamline operations, save time, and reduce costs. And with our unlimited license model, you gain unlimited access to our tools across your entire organization. Our complimentary ZAP experts work alongside your team, ensuring smooth implementation and maximum value from day one. These benefits, plus 6 months of proof of concept, make automation fast, scalable, and risk-free for enterprises. As enterprise teams evolve, so must their automation strategy. That's where the Software Automation Hub comes in. At ZAPTEST AI, an automation hub isn't just a team. It's a smart center of excellence where experts gather insights, build reusable scripts, and connect teams that once worked in silos. As teams perform tasks like QA, they develop reusable scripts, libraries, AI agents, and best practices, assets that can be shared across departments to boost efficiency. This is where most ROI is realized, through reusability and cross-functional knowledge sharing. The Automation Hub becomes a collaborative platform where experts share insights, build reusable assets, and bridge the gap between DevOps and BizOps. Through coordinated efforts and ongoing knowledge exchange, teams align under a unified automation strategy, driving faster innovation, better communication, and stronger outcomes. With ZAPTEST AI, your team saves time, becomes solution architects, and turns automation into a business accelerator, building a smart, future-ready enterprise. Visit ZAPTEST AI to start your automation journey today. Be happy, and let's zap.
Thank you guys for watching this. I think it's illustrated better than I would have done. Let me switch the sharing to my deck again. Here we go. So let's talk about the history of testing in general, right? So I started my career in the mid-90s as a test engineer in the rise of bug 2000 threat, right? So, that's basically gave me opportunity to live through the evolution of testing and test automation. I've been lucky enough to be in the frontier of the industry from the day one, pretty much, for various reasons. But this way or another, I've been involved in evolving the automation from manual testing basically into the ZAPTEST AI where we're at right now. So the history goes that at the beginning when we started in the industry, we assumed that tester can do it all. But then when the web started to rise and different flavors of webs and browsers and the ActiveX controls, we understood that the manual testing is not efficient. It needs to be automated. So the tools like XRunner and WinRunner were one of the popular, if you remember, a rational robot and what's not, right? So as those tools started to rise up, we understood that testers, manual testers, don't have skills to execute it all. So we need to have for testers to be coders. So we try to educate testers on testing all the scripting languages that were available back then in the tools, but it wasn't efficient enough because it was a very long learning curve for people to learn the tools, right? And not all of them had a computer science kind of scripting programming background. So around 2005, luckily I was a co-designer of one of the last tools before Mercury exited to HP. We used to call it business process testing tool. The concept of business process testing tool was to introduce differentiation of the roles in the QA process for firm subject matter expertise and the automation specialist expertise, right? So we started to call it SME and automators later on. So unfortunately, so this tool was based on the two main celebrity tools at that time: Quality Center or Test Director, which was improved, and the Quick Test Professional, which was renamed to the UFT later on. So that tool, between all other aspects, has some architectural gaps. And the fact that object engine recognition back then and it still was a DOM-based one, scalable enough, and the collaboration between the engine and the SMEs that were supposed to build the architecture with the automation set of mind was too complex. So unfortunately, that tool didn't pick up as wide as we intend for it to be. So with that all commotion of the evolution of the automation, we have a reality that the bar raised and the non-technical teams have to contribute as much as they can, right, to be in automation. And all the shift later on started to load on the automator. So if leadership has a budget, how to spend it, they will consider the automators to be funded more than the manual testers or SME that actually know the knowledge, they possess the knowledge of what needs to be tested. So reality today, generative AI writes code faster than humans. Test automation is now driven by natural language, SME can automate without technical skill. AI is replacing traditional coding testers. So what we see on the market, exactly what you see here on the slide. ChatGPT, any generative AI, produces information with the lightning speed. It can write the code of different intentions, and if it can do on the standalone basis for development and other tasks, it has to do it for testing as well. And this is basically leads to the other challenges, right? So QA team must deliver more with fewer engineers. We'll see the a reduction of workforce for sake of process optimization. All the boards, all the leaders being forced to deliver more with less personnel. Challenge that come with that: old schools that we traditionally use, that use a DOM-based object engine recognition, and what comes between that and the web drivers, not scalable enough because it still requires human interaction. There are some vendors that trying to automate it through AI, but if it does not recognize objects, it requires high maintenance of the object recognition level. It's going to be always bottleneck, and this is what we see in the industry. And productivity challenges, the teams being frustrated. If you, as a leader, have to deliver the 50% workforce that you used to have and deliver more in a higher speed because they starting to compare you to generative AI responses, then you're being frustrated, right? So to consider all the factors, we came up with ZAPTEST AI one-click process. We call it record and playback reinvent. Just a history about the record and playback sentiment. Being the SWAT team leader in the Mercury days, we used to walk into the customer side in the post-sale commotion. And if the old schooler like Paul and other guys have been in the industry for quite a while, you probably remember that tools, not matter Mercury, Rational, any other vendors on the market, they've been sold on the commotion of it's very easy. All you have to just record, and it's going to play back like a drill, right? In fact, it's never worked out. It was choking of different factors, and we as the implementers, like a post-sales team, we're supposed to juggle between the emotion of the customer that already committed and the actual results, what we can do in the process. So when we started to develop ZAPTEST as a standalone tool, I was against the record playback functionality, period. Being a rebel, I mean, a lot of people in the industry thought of me as very unorthodox in the soft way to explain it. But I was firm with that because I said, well, you have to be honest with the process. Don't confuse people. So we're going to have people that know what needs to be automated, and they're going to explain it in the perfect language in English, outline all the processes, and we're going to have automators that are going to be the automation ninjas that are going to come in and take all the textual explanation and build the perfect code to them. So with the generative AI, we able to deliver it now because we have a multiple factors that's no longer constrained. At ZAPTEST, we have a computer vision object recognition. We used to have it from the day one, but only now in the crisis of agility of automation, it's starting to get better recognition than it used to be. And another factor, we don't need to deal with the human error as far as the automators go. So machine writes code much faster, precise, and you don't need to wait for anyone, right? And we able to automate it. So what you see here on the screen, it's a very high-level diagram of one-click process, all driven by AI. So what we do here, we got two entry points. One entry point, very quick. We connect to your ALM from ZAPTEST, and we take all the documentation that you have stored, like Jira's, Azure's of the world, and so forth, right? So, but in reality, it's a perfect case scenario. In reality, we all know as a QA professionals, there's never case where you have all documentation for all processes outlined perfectly for anyone to understand, including me, right? So there's a lot of gaps. So in order to fulfill those gaps in the process description, we offer Recorder, Rec Studio, that allows you to record desktop action as a human. And you can also leave narration. That's going to be also put to the Plan Studio, which is going to outline all the processes. And with a single click, that's why we call it click-by-click process, it's going to analyze it in the automation-friendly architecture. So then, once you review the architecture and agree with that, you're going to send it to automation. Again, one click to analyze architecture, second click to convert all this textual architecture into the source code, executable source code, ready to do regression testing. Now, once you agree with the outline of the source code, that also includes object recognition, object calibration. It's all done with AI automatic. So you can send it to the mass execution through AMRA. The reason why I wanted you to watch a 7-minute video, and this day 7 minutes seems to be very long video, attention span much short. So you to understand what other components are there in the ZAPTEST as a whole one-stop automation solution. But with all that said, I want to play another video that I prepared for you that's going to talk about one-click process. And in that shorter video, it's only 2 minutes. And it's going to illustrate how it's all done. All right, please allow me to share it with you right here. All right, I believe you can see my browser, and let's go.
ZAPTEST AI continues to evolve, putting powerful, intelligent automation in the hands of every team. Introducing the latest enhancement to ZAPTEST, the AI-infused recorder. This smart feature captures user interactions with any application and instantly converts them into structured test documentation within Plan Studio, followed by ready-to-execute automated scripts. Creating or updating test cases has never been faster. There's no need for technical skills or programming. Anyone familiar with the business process can now contribute. Manual testers, SMEs, and business analysts can simply show the tool what needs to be automated. In Plan Studio, test data can be collected in 2 ways. Either by syncing with an existing ALM or test management platform, or by using the enhanced recorder to capture live user interactions. Plan Studio takes it from there with AI-powered analysis. It reviews all test cases using multiple criteria and identifies those best suited for automation, recognizes common steps to build reusable modules, defines inputs and outputs to create data-driven automation. Once analyzed, Plan Studio launches the final phase, AI-assisted script generation. In one step, your test cases or reusable modules are converted into full automation scripts. Next, automation specialists, assisted by ZAPTEST experts, Review and organize the scripts into robust testing frameworks ready for execution. This ensures quality, consistency, and enterprise-grade readiness. Need instant help? ZAPTEST AI Copilot is always there, ready to generate scripts on demand, debug code, or answer questions in real time. ZAPTEST AI empowers teams to automate faster, smarter, and without barriers, turning knowledge into power every minute, every hour. In a high-pressure world, this is your superpower. Let's zap.
All right, let's zap. Thank you for watching. I'm going to go back to my deck. And this is where we're at. So as you've seen how it's all done in the closer range, again, we have documentation that's been analyzed by the through the harness that it takes it to the plant studio. We have a recorder that allows human to record processes that's missing in the whole structure of documentation. All that can be analyzed by Plant Studio, and we're talking in a matter of seconds, even minutes, right? So it's done so fast, so it's reduced so much man hours. So any team with the lesser personnel that's being understaffed can deliver even more than they used to deliver in the full scale. Then once it's all, the most important part here is architecture, and I'll talk about it later. So the next step, again, is to auto-generate scripts with single click. You click one button, it creates all the script in JavaScript. And again, at this point, scripting language is not that important. You won't even know what is under the hood. And you're going to be scheduling for mass execution. We're showing you in the demo 4 different platforms. In fact, you can do it on 10, 100, as many as your environment allows you, because you're going to need the stronger servers to run it all, right? But it's give you, I mean, very strong execution capabilities, not even for regression testing, but also for RPA, for folks that automate in the business operation process. And that's a different conversation about unified automation hub, but it's possible there. Now, no coding automation. So ZAPTEST AI removes all technical barriers. So now you can focus on your SMEs. You can focus on people that have been with you the longest, that know the process the deepest, and they're gonna be the automation drivers, if you will, right? AI-powered screen recording captures screen activity, turns into the executable test cases, allows you to edit it if you made a mistake, if there is some kind of a rich logic flow on the way. It's all possible, right? And this is a diagram of the roles in the process that I wanted to kind of ask you to pay attention to it, because it sounds too good to be true, right? On the other hand, you kind of may wonder who else will be involved. So in the green here, those are the phases that covered by the SME, manual testers, literally speaking, right? Someone that can only do manual testing, don't need to know the coding, don't understand the subject of automation, architecture, nothing to do with the computer science or programming to that extent. It's maybe business analyst, anyone that possesses the knowledge of application, right? Then in the blue, it's a automation leader. I mean, not automation, and I'll take it back, SME leader. Someone senior subject matter or business analyst that can review everything that the team of the SMEs committed to the plant studio, because it's not going to be just one person, right? You may have a mass implementation, you may have 3, 5, 10 people recording scenarios and adding it to the project that the ALM couldn't deliver, because that's probably not enough documentation there. Reviews the reusable and procedural automation modules, reviews the test parameters, all the architectural aspects. It's very important part of the phase, because this is the finale and the most strategic aspect of the whole process. We need to be absolutely sure that we got all the processes analyzed, linked on the natural language level, right? All the parameters will be accurate, adhere to all the input and output data flow, right? And once that's done and certified, then all SMEs or one SME, whoever have time, just simply click button, and all the scripts converts by agents into the source code automatically. You don't even see it. Well, you probably saw in the demo there's a blue notification tab appears once the script created, so it tells you the script been already by agent, right? So at that phase, you have a orange or brownish quadrant. This is where the automation specialists, we still need the automators on the staff. We're not getting rid of guys completely, right? But we need a fewer of them. And their mission will be, instead of the heavy writing code like we used to do that, they're just gonna review and analyze what AI converted. And it's gonna take, with the worst case scenario, it's gonna take significantly less time for them, even if they have to tweak certain things, than to write any architecture from scratch. You probably agree with me on that, right? And this is what we call one-click process. So with that said, this is basically what I wanted to show you today, between the general overview of ZAPTEST and, most importantly, what ZAPTEST AI in the click-by-click process in the modern teams, in the modern testing can do. So I'm done with my part. Paul, I'm not sure how much time we have for questions, if we do have time for questions.
Not sure. Can you hear me? Yes, I'm back over here. We got a lot of time. We got about 40 minutes.
Perfect. Let's do it, guys. Just grill me. Let's have a heated discussion. I like it. Be my sparring partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go back a little bit and take a look at a couple of questions. Let's see. So Luisa was asking, does this tool work for native mobile applications?
For anything. And I'll explain you why. It's not because I want to amuse you here. I do. But I will explain you how. We have a computer vision object recognition engine. So 95% of the tools on the market either run on the DOM base, which is a custom-made native by that company, or the web drivers, right, which also DOM-based at the end. So it just has a different structure. So what it does, it relies on the object classes in some cases, and the most importantly, properties of this object class to match during the playback. Make sense? In our case, we changed the paradigm in the 2000s. We came as a tool. That was a core decision why we became as a standalone tool, because at the early days, we had an add-on that we used to give for free when we used to sell Quick Test Pro, because we were resellers of Mercury and HP products. I came up with the new idea, sort of Spider-Man, and said, we cannot walk stairs anymore. We even have a video about ZAP Hero. You might watch it on YouTube, which kind of put the plot on the story, right? And the sci-fi mode. So we created a computer vision object recognition, which wasn't based on the object properties, but was based on the four main fundamentals. It was based on the OCR, so it's read the text. It was based on the edge detection, was detecting the edges of non-textual objects. It was based on the relationship anchoring between the textual and non-textual objects. So when you have a text field and you have a one label, you can anchor it and they calibrate it mathematically during the playback of the resolution change, right? And of course, coordinate if you need it as a last resort. So all these aspects allow us to seamlessly, please pay attention, seamlessly automate any user interface without negotiation what it is. So whatever you created for the mainframe application, if the business logic remains the same of the test process, you can apply it to the web application. Because for ZAPTEST, unless you tell them to, it doesn't matter its login was developed on the one technology or the other technology. You just see what the humans see. Exactly the same sentence. Hope I explained it correctly. We have 40 minutes, so I can go deeper.
Yeah. we got plenty of time. It does make interesting that you bring up mainframe. There's a couple of tools out there that it's a little. I find it rare, but I like it when I hear that like a mainframe terminal emulator, it can be automated with a tool. So
Right.
that is really cool. I think one of the other things I wanted to ask you about is so your test cases can run in parallel, um, and I think you said it was like infinite amounts of parallel. Maybe that's what I heard.
Right. Well, theoretically, it's
Theoretically
infinite, but
infinite.
right. We're all engineers, we're all practitioners. We understand it's gonna overload somewhere, but technically, you can break it by virtual machines and load the virtual machines from the farm with whatever you need. You want to do the physical, you can do emulators on the mobile, and even the barcode scanner. So we connect to the operating system. As long as we can, and we recognize major operating system like Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, Linux, right?
Awesome.
And of course, everything that runs on it.
Cool. Vaso just asked a question. Are design patterns such as the page object model supported on the generated code of ZAPTEST?
We don't care about page model, because we have visual object recognition. So our object classification absolutely different than it's common in the world. And again, I've always been an orthodox. That was my motto. My mentors taught me to create my own category, right? So that I was been doing all my career. And in my category, we're saying we're not going to have object classes like the world perceives them. We're going to do only what's needed, because keep in mind, I have a SWAT team leader kind of in mind. So my proof of worth always was to be sent to the hardest and most difficult situation and make it work, like a special ops force, right? So I always say, I don't care what people think, how the market perceive, how they sell it. I'm gonna do what is right. This is why I'm giving you 6 months proof of concept, because I'm so confident in what I'm doing that I'm risking not to get paid for 6 months, right? At all.
That's pretty cool. Actually, nobody that I know of. I do talk to a lot of the people in the industry. I don't know of anyone who's doing 6 months, and some of them are like, I'm going to give you like 5 days. I'm like, I'm in the middle of a release. What am I supposed to do in 5 days?
Right. And again,
I love that. I love what you're doing.
Please keep in mind, I'm unorthodox in this way.
Yeah.
And that's conversation for all of us as a community, right? We have a bunch of people, a bunch of professionals online. You cannot make it automation. It's a career choice. It's a strategic choice.
Yeah,
makes sense. A lot of great leaders been burned by automation. It's like a snow avalanche, right? So you can either ride it or being killed by them. So if you miscalculate parameters as far as the tools that you use, most importantly, personnel that's going to be using this tool, the process that's going to be designed around personnel skill set, budget that you've been given to support this personnel, and the tool set that can scale to what you have to deliver for your mission, right? You're going to be stank by the maintenance. You're going to trap yourself in the maintenance. You're going to fall behind. You're going to get fired. Your opinion about automation going to be ruined. Make sense? This is why before you commit your budget, I'm going to give you 6 months, because I'm building the lifetime partnership. I've been running it for 25 years. I have customers that we grow from the automation leaders to the VP of technologies, because we always used to deliver under their name. So they used to have a confidence to take any obnoxious automation task and bring ZAP into it with ZAPTEST and our expertise, and we used to deliver. Make sense? So this is why I'm giving you 6 months POC, because I'm building the partnership with you. I'm going to be running ZAP for another 20 years. As long as the computer science is going to be paid, I will be there. I'll figure it away. Right?
I'm the same way. My wife asked me, when am I going to retire? I'm like, when
Never.
I die, when
Exactly.
I got one foot in the grave, that's when it's, because I loved everything.
Exactly. Longevity, it's a new normal. So we're all going to have a chance to live till 150 to 100 years old. Right?
Well, I saw my grandfather at 101. I'm not sure if I want to go that far. But
why not? We're gonna have fun.
He was still driving at 100. That was the problem. But
You
anyway,
see, you have a good example.
Getting back to, and by the way, Vaso, yeah, I totally agree with Alex on the page object model. I actually kind of abandoned it many years ago, and probably when I was working with the Mercury tools, basically what I did is I put in what I call clever coding. I said, if you can't find this object, go and try and build it a different way. The best example I had was our developers had a whole bunch of links, and then at the end of the sprint, they had a whole bunch of buttons, and I couldn't find the buttons. None of my scripts worked. And I basically put a couple lines of code in there. It says, if you can't find the link, go and build it as a button. And we got like 80-90% of our stuff working. Alex also made a really good point, is that the more and bigger your framework gets, the bigger that page object model gets, and the more likely that you're going to spend a lot of time maintaining it, because change is constant in our field. And by the way, Alex, I really like the fact that not only do you do work in test automation, you work in robotic process automation, which is RPA.
That's a warning for everyone. And guys, my mission on the market, maybe I'm too buzzy, maybe I'm too annoying, maybe I'm too loud, right? But I will not stop telling you that, because everybody, we're one small community. Even though for every one of us from our cubicles, it thinks that it's a huge world. No, it's not. Worldwide, test automation and testing, fairly small community. We might be one of the smallest in the other computer science industries, right? Like the security guys and others developers, right? So, and I want to be absolutely bold and honest to you, because I'm planning with each one of you that come across my name, across my technology, I want to build a partnership. I want to be honest to community. I'm not going anywhere. I'm standing behind my brand. And for that sake, I just want to tell you, you have to prove your work. Keep in mind, you see layoffs. That's going to continue. I don't want to sound too depressing, right? But I want to give you clear warning. For what you do in your jobs, think how you can deliver more to stay in the game. Make sense? One of the ways to develop, you always have to develop, right? So leadership never gonna be tired of pushing you farther, because they all get pushed by the board of directors, by the CIOs, by the directors and the leaders and yada yada, right? That goes to the chain. So bottom line, every evaluation, every year, you have to prove why it's you gonna stay on the job and not the other guy. Because with the smart tool and your knowledge how to do things faster, you can deliver more. Once you prove the concept in the testing space, what I've given you is ZAPTEST. It's a unified software automation tool. We do not differentiate the discipline, because at the end of the day, it's the same process that you automate either for purpose of testing or for purpose of the execution on the daily basis of business operation. Make sense? The same login, same search fly, same book hotel, book rent a car, and yada yada, right? The kind of. So, biggest problem of the industry, and because we were a rich industry, we're a rich country, I get it. It's a redundancy. If you look at any large corporation, I work predominantly because of the altitude of technology and the pricing points. We work predominantly from mid-sized to large enterprise, the largest in the world. Because they get most out of our unlimited licensing model and our application of our tool in different groups. So even down, predominantly down, they have so much redundancy in the packets that don't talk to one another. If you consolidate it all, and you're going to say, hey, guys, we're going to reapply the same skills that we have in one team instead of having 5 teams. Let's unite. Let's have a good leadership. Let's going to break it per projects, what we're automating. Let's consolidate reusable components, test data, reusable functions that we spend a lot of time creating, and yada, yada, into the one automation hub. And we're going to repurpose. We're going to we're going to build a center of service in the company, automation service, right? And you're going to deliver automation for different groups that's going to give you a request for automation. So it's one of the optimized ways. So at ZAPTEST, you can do it. We don't differentiate testing from RPA. It's the same process, pretty much.
Yeah, I brought it up because my son, you would think I spent years kind of grooming him to be a test automation engineer. He had no interest in computers, and then like 2 weeks before he moved out, he's like, "What's this Selenium thing?" And then he like, "Bye, I want to." We have something finally to bond on. But in his career in the last 6 months, since he's moved out on Halloween, he's actually become a very significant in robotic process automation. He's getting processes automated, and he's doing it by coding. But definitely, I think ZAPTEST would be something that he would definitely want to take a look at to see how can you do it faster and just get it done. Why sit there and struggle with I struggle with the AI, just trying to get it to write stuff that I wanted, but I'm just not writing the prompts correctly on my side. And I've seen Alex's tool over there. One of the things I really love about that is I see something that has been missing for a long time, and that's those data tables that you have inside that tool, where it's actually part of the IDE. Here's the data table. We're going to go run through it. Here's your test, and we'll run it through this data, this data, this data, this data. Rather than having let's go reference some external Excel file. I like the fact that you've got it actually embedded into the IDE. I wish we could just bring it up and show that it's neat. But I think you've got a great design behind that whole thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm looking for, if anyone else has other questions, remember we're on YouTube at the moment. We still got about 10 minutes left. If you have any questions, I'll be trying to come up with some other cool things. I did do a research. I mentioned at the beginning of our segment, I said I thought I did the Candy Mapper Challenge with you, Alex. I can't find the video on it, but I do know that I did the video with showing how your avatar works. So I definitely want to follow up on that and get through that.
We can repeat the challenge. Top Alex Zap.
Absolutely.
Just throw me any environmental scenario. I'll explain you how we can deliver it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what else what else makes ZAPTEST stand out among the multiple products that are out there?
Well, again, one of the main, it all depends who you're talking to, right? So if you're talking to CIO, if you go top down, then it's definitely ability to apply seamless automation, reduce redundancy, that improves ROI. So you're reducing man hours. You can repurpose your permanent workers that you have without reaching out to consultant force with the budget that you're being given to drive entire automation and scale it, because we're giving you unlimited license, right? So if you talk to the director of QA, it's give you ability to deliver more for your company by stepping beyond testing. So beyond testing means that instead of reducing the budget and the workforce of your QA organization, you're coming up to the CIO or CTO and saying, hey guys, let me do RPA automation. RPA being very under-delivered. If the challenge in the enterprise world, because the departments disisolated, they don't talk to one another. Everybody very silent in their boxes. One reason why that's kind of following the directives of their leadership. Makes sense, just mind their own business. And the leadership doesn't have time and enough pressure and the challenge to consolidate it. So director can step out and say, hey guys, I can deliver beyond testing. Let's build the automation hub. Let me repurpose scripts that I already invested a year building into the RPA with ZAPTEST, because we can deliver it all without boundary, right? Any technology. If you talk to the automation leader, the same way. I mean, if you do a manager that can take more work on the test automation side and take the workload of different groups, so do it, because now you can deliver more script with the less time and the lesser personnel. Make sense? And yada yada. Automators going nowhere. I don't want to people think that's hate me for that. That's we're gonna get a low job. No, opposite. You need to think of yourself as a different. When AI came 3 years ago, and I put my old developers together, I said, guys, forget what you known for 20 years. Everything that we went to school to learn and experience, it's not going to be needed no more. We now in the era of riding dragons. Don't try to fight with dragons. You're not going to be smarter or faster than that. Learn
That's
how
true.
to live with that and ride it. So ride on the dragon.
Yep.
So automators, you have a ZAPTEST AI. This is the perfect dragon that you may have. I've been building it with my 20 years advanced experience and cut down 3-4 years development in the AI only. Make sense? So we just announcing right now the partnership with Microsoft. Microsoft picked us up in the upper tier partners, so Azure and Microsoft AI, for that reason, that we can fly by and do cross automation instantly. So again, automators, you're not going to lose the job. Just make yourself useful as an architect. Say, okay, I don't mind to record the processes if I need to, right? I don't mind to review that's the most important thing. You have to use your knowledge of automation and architecture on the textual format. You don't need to write code. You don't need to go through the wires, right? Bots will do that. What do you have to do? You need to review what the, let's say, Plant Studio analyzed, outline reusable modules and procedural modules for automation. You need to review it, agree with that or disagree with that, edit it or tell people to edit it, right? Collect all the data, reusable components, and review after it's been converted. Review the same way on the automation side. So what you can do, you're going to produce more automation with your knowledge in the same time. So, and it's never enough to automate. Never enough to automate in any enterprise, either not on the testing, not on the RPA side. If you can deliver it faster, show your leadership that you can do it with the smart tools, you're always going to be in the game.
Yep. I can actually give a really good use case that I've got going on, and I've done this with previous clients I've worked for, which is not only do you automate your test cases, but you don't want to, as you were saying, the automation engineers aren't going to go away. And by the way, the manual testers aren't going to go away either. At the very least, you're going to get a little bit better and smarter at what you do using tools like this. But one of the things I found is I've got a manual tester, and she needs records generated for her manual testing. She has to have it available, and for her to create it, it takes a bit of time. And of course, there's a human factor in there where the accuracy, does she get it right the first time? No, she has to go and recreate it. What I found was just data generation, just having something that runs every night, which I think this actually falls into the RPA position, where it's like, oh, you've already created this record, you burned it, it's not useful anymore. I'll go create another one for you. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Tomorrow might be a test day. I'll go create 1 or 2 for you, and always have that that there as a tool for data generation. So your manual testers don't have to spend that time doing the generation themselves. They already have everything ready for them to go when they start their testing on their release. And tools like this, absolutely, I think that's a good place where things balance out on 2 different ways. And I can definitely show an ROI, a speed increase, saying, hey, we didn't spend 20 minutes creating the data in order to run a 10-minute test. So we just did the 10-minute test and everything was done.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Cool. So I think we'll talk a little bit about where you can find more information about Alex and ZAP. It's basically www.zaptest.com.
Oh, ZAPTEST AI, and I added the barcode.
Sorry.
And no, I mean, it goes both ways.
It does.
Completely to AI right now. So I also added the barcode. I want to encourage you all, just for kicks, right? Play the game. I have an Asa, my digital avatar, the guy that was talking into the videos, right? We train him on everything, anything ZAPTEST. So on the homepage, if you go, you can have a full conversation with Asa about anything comes to your mind, automation related. And we do have a guy, and you can book a demo with us. It's a 1-hour demo. I'm going to be there myself with my leading engineers, and we're going to discuss in personally your objectives, and we can show you how we can add it and deliver it. So there's a phases you can find out on the website how we onboard the technology, but you get 6 months without paying to evaluate it within the company.
Yeah.
Yep.
if you just want to have some fun, because there is a video that I posted up a couple of months ago with ZAPTEST where I was actually having some conversations with this. And it was just a kind of fun little thing. You can find it on the ZAPTEST AI. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, there is the image of the where you can talk to the avatar. You can see Alex, the Zap avatar there, and there's a big red button that says talk. Click on talk, and then it'll open up the microphone. You don't even have to type at your computer. You can just have a little conversation and ask it all sorts of interesting questions, all about ZAPTEST. I think that is one of the coolest things. Yes.
Yes, Paul. Also, we added new functionality that you didn't see it yet. ASA now provides you with the video demos. So if you're talking about, let's say, show me agile automation, so how we can automate on the mockup. So ASA are going to explain it to you and then present to you. There's a window, present to you the video coverage of that to show you the demo illustrate.
I will have to go back and revisit that. I'll post together a new video. Definitely need to do the Kidney Mapper Challenge with ZAPTEST. I thought we had done it. It's buried somewhere in my project, so I'm going to go and follow up on that. Alex, you and I will definitely be talking in a day or two because I've got some interesting things and questions for you. Okay. And I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us on the second hour here. It's really great information. I love this tool. It is really cool to play with. I'm going to be playing a little bit more around with it more. Just let everybody, the page object model, I think it's going away. I don't think it's a thing that's going to be around anymore, especially with the AI stuff being smart enough to figure out what you really meant when you said click that add to cart button. And it changed to add to my cart button. You don't have to update stuff. Alex, again, thank you very much. I wish you the very best. Any last parting words?
Well, Paul, I'm a big fan of your talent. It's great to keep in the community together. I will looking forward to support you guys. Please don't hesitate. Book a demos, ask me questions, send emails, and talk to ASA.
Yeah,
and let's ZAP. Be happy and let's ZAP.
All right. Everybody take care. We will be with you again in a month or two, probably with Larry Goddard, with another 2 more lead people in the test automation field. Until then, have yourself a great day. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.